get started. I just wanted to note that we'll be recording the first part of this meeting, and we are very, very delighted to be joined by Chief of our Montgomery County Police Department, Marcus Jones. Chief Jones, thank you for being here with us. We really appreciate the opportunity to connect with you, and would love to get an overview and an update on what's going on in terms of safety and planning in the county. And if you want to just open up with a few remarks, and then we have a couple of questions that I know my colleagues will be sharing with you.
Sure, absolutely. And thank you, Monique. And good evening to everyone. It is great to be with you all today, this evening. And again, here we are in our world of virtual, but it's still fabulous to see and hear the many voices here in Montgomery County. So I want to give you all a brief update on our department, also to provide you with some information in regards to information that's occurring in the county with our crime, and talk about public safety issues all throughout the county. And also, I'm sure that I want to make sure I leave some time because I'm sure there's some questions that I need to answer as we enter in, as we have been into 2022, and dealing with a lot of issues centered around police reform. So be more than happy to talk about a lot of those issues. Centered around crime, as many of you probably have heard, there's been an uptick in violent crime that has been occurring throughout Montgomery County, but also throughout the region. And, you know, basically it has been a nationwide increase amongst many police agencies and communities. Montgomery County is not any different. What I will tell you from the increase of violent crime that we've noticed is the fact that we have seen an incredible influx of guns that have occurred, that we are seizing, and we are responding to more incidents of gunfire being that is occurring throughout our community. That is somewhat of a disturbing trend from a perspective that, you know, when we see these increases, we really try to figure out, to the best of our ability, what is causing the increase in this type of activity. And this is not happening in any one given area throughout the county. It is really spread out through our districts such as Silver Spring, Wheaton, parts of Gaithersburg, as well as Germantown, where we're seeing these upticks. The guns that we are recovering, as many of you have heard, and probably well advertised in response to recent legislation, has been this uptick of ghost guns, which is also another name for privately manufactured firearms. These firearms are basically sold at either gun shows. They are sold by individuals who have the ability to sell them online. The fact of the matter is that many of these guns are being purchased by people in the public, those who have the legal right to own them, who have no criminal record. There's nothing that prohibits them from owning them. And then there are those who actually are prohibited from owning them, who are possessing these guns. And we are finding these guns being involved in many of our incidents of violent crime, whether it's shooting, and in some cases, some of our homicides that have occurred over the past year plus. You know, we have discovered that you can easily go over to a gun show, for example, in Virginia. You need to not produce any ID. You can be, you know, of any age. You can be, there's no background check. Basically, it's a sort of a cash carry business. And these guns can actually be easily made as well. There are kits that you can purchase online. And we've discovered several individuals who have actually been making, pretty much putting these guns together based upon the kits that they purchase online. and basically put them together. As you know, we had the shooting earlier this year at Magruder High School, and the student that actually was charged in that case actually did purchase he's 17 years old, and he actually did purchase that privately manufactured firearm online that was basically dropped off on his doorstep. And he basically put that gun together in his bedroom when as we discovered throughout the investigation. That's the simplicity part of it, and it's unfortunate because as much as we have last year, we seized 71 of those ghost guns. Again, they are non-traceable. They have no serial numbers. So, again, who's the original owner, we don't know. But we do know that we see 72 last year, and year to date, here we are, April 22nd, the latest, 21st, I'm sorry, the latest update that I received today was that we've seized 82 of those guns thus far this year, in less than 4 months. So that again shows you the increase that we're seeing. And my other neighboring jurisdictions are seeing the same, and their numbers are even much higher than ours. So that's the disturbing piece on that front. I will state that across the county we are starting to see an increase in burglaries, residential burglaries as well as commercial burglaries. We think that probably is due to the fact that people are beginning to go back to work. That we're no longer in sort of the pandemic. There's somewhat a release of individuals that are going back full-time. Schools are back in full-time, as we all know. So therefore, now we're starting to see more of these types of incidents that are upticking throughout the county. We're also, again, there are other aggravated assaults that we're seeing an increase in, and robberies are slightly going up throughout the county. So with that being said, again, we have addressed several of these types of crime waves that we've had throughout the county. Part of that has been in areas such as Silver Spring, in downtown Silver Spring. We have put more resources in downtown Silver Spring to address the uptick of violent crimes that we were having towards the latter part of last year. We have been able to, I think, really get a handle on that, and that has been minimized due to our footprint and working with the business community and other residential areas in regards to that. Germantown, we also began to see an uptick in some violent crimes as well. In Germantown, we've also put a lot of focus around the areas in which we've identified as higher crime areas to address that. So therefore, when we are seeing these different types of incidents, we are trying to address them as quickly as possible in order to put the necessary resources in those areas to address those crime trends, and to work with the community really to try to figure out what is happening in order to be able to eliminate it. Not just to put a sort of a stopgap, but we really do want to try to figure out opportunities in order to eliminate that. One other issue that I think that's important for you all to know, that has been again, it's not just a Montgomery County event, but we are starting to see and have been seeing for a few months now what they call car meetups. And these car meetups are individuals that gather. Generally, they can be 100 people. You'll see 100 cars gather at one given location. It can be 200 cars. We've seen it as high as over 250 cars in different areas throughout the county. We've had them in Gaithersburg. We've had them in Burtonsville. We've had them actually one evening. We actually had that whole car meetup group went actually into downtown Silver Spring. And if you ever have seen either the movies or even the previews of the movie of Fast and Furious, where you see these cars that are really kind of modified, and it is a trend that these young people like to put their antics of dealing with their cars, burning tires and smoking tires and doing figure eights and speeding up and down and drag racing. They will put these things on YouTube, and that becomes the glory of the event. That they go over and they do intersection takeovers. They go into a large intersection and they basically stop traffic with all of their cars, and then they put on their show for a few minutes in order to have it put on social media. And that's a significant issue that law enforcement, not only in Montgomery County, that we've been dealing with, but we've been we've had to create a regional task force to address this very problem throughout the state of Maryland, as well as Virginia, in order to be able to address that. We have to do a lot of intelligence gathering. A lot of these folks will communicate through their social media channels to get people to gather. And this all started really during the pandemic, when people were really kind of locked down, and these young people would go to large shopping centers. We've had it in Rockville, for example, and around Montrose Crossing. They'll go to large shopping center parking lots, and they'll just, for the most part, it's like a car club, but it's just very large. And sometimes some of them are very peaceful. They'll just kind of sit around and talk and show off their cars and hang out with their friends. But then sometimes they go into some disorderly conduct, or they also go into, again, reckless driving behaviors and loud mufflers and drag racing and those things that are impacting communities. And so these are the things that we have had to come up with strategies in order to be able to try to address this type of behavior, and really try to be on the forefront, to be more proactive, to be ready to have resources ready to address it before they occur. We've been fortunate in some cases. We've had information that we knew that these events were going to occur. We had many officers on a detail prepared to deal with it, with plans, and working with our colleagues from Maryland State Police, Prince George's County, and other joining jurisdictions to help us. But that doesn't mean that we're 100% correct all the time, because of the way that these groups are known to communicate, because they do a lot of their communication, so quote, what we would call underground, and they do their very best to not to be detected by law enforcement. So we want to stay really vigilant to stay on top of this issue, and to make sure that we're addressing this in a public safety manner, and addressing it as best as we can as we move forward. The next thing I want to talk about just briefly is, and I know let me stop for a second. I just want to mention carjackings for another, because I know that's been on the minds of a lot of people as well. It is no doubt in 2021, we had a tremendous uptick in the events of carjacking in Montgomery County, all throughout the county. We're primarily focused in the lower part, in the Bethesda, Silver Spring corridors. Primarily, that's where the most events occurred. And we put together a carjacking task force along with Prince George's County and the Metropolitan Police Department, because we discovered that, again, these individuals who were committing these offenses were crossing jurisdictional lines, and there's no boundaries for them. They go where they think there is a quote, a market for these cars, or target areas, and then they focus on them, and then they try to commit these offenses. We have really kind of been scratching our heads, because we're really trying to figure out what is the rhyme or reason why these events were happening at the numbers they were happening. And what one thing we discovered was money wasn't the motive. They weren't selling the cars. They weren't selling car parts. What we really determined is that, yes, some of them were utilizing the stolen cars that they had carjacked, they used them in other crimes, violent crimes, for example, robberies. But we also found that a large amount of them were just driving the cars for a certain amount of times and then just dumping them. But we saw that not only would they sometimes carjack one car, but then that same group of individuals would go and carjack another car while in a carjacked vehicle. So we put a lot of focus on resources and trying to deter that, as well as trying to address those events. We have been fortunate to have made some significant arrests in many of those, in some of the cases in Montgomery County. I know our partners in Prince George's and DC have also had success, and we've been able to, through our investigators, connect some of those cases in the different jurisdictions. And they've been, some of them are being charged federally. So these are our challenges as we continue to move forward. Again, understanding that even though it is, we feel as if it's on a decline, I will tell you it is still a real concern of mine that these events are still happening in the county. And so now I want to just talk about sort of the state of Montgomery County Police Department, where we are currently in. Here we are, 2022. I will tell you currently, one of my main concern about our department currently is our staffing levels. Why do I say that? Right now, the department, it has an authorized strength of 1,276 officers. When I began this job over 2.5 years ago, actually we had an authorized strength of 1,300 officers. So with budget cuts, that's been some decrease. But I will tell you, currently our staffing level, we are at about 1,225 officers currently, and we are losing officers rapidly. Right now, the most depressing figure that I can share with the group tonight is the fact that today we have 20% of our department that's eligible to retire. And that is really a deafening number of the impact of our department as we move forward, because on the flip side of that, we have not been able to maintain our hiring numbers as to be as consistent with those that are leaving. So not only are we seeing officers begin to retire in the higher numbers, but we're also starting to see resignations grow that have occurred over the past 6 to 8 months at a rate that is much higher than what is our normal attrition rate. And there's a lot of reasons behind that. Much of that has been centered around, defund the police movements, reforming the police, a lot of negative interactions with the community or community reactions about policing. And then officers are just leaving the profession or going to other locations where they're not receiving that type of reaction. So there's a combination of these things. And so we've been working very hard to figure out ways in order to sort of reimagine our department in a way to be efficient, to provide the ultimate amount of police service to this community. And so when I start to look at the numbers decline, particularly in our patrol division, which is our first responders, those are those individuals who are answering 911 calls, and we're starting to see a drop in the amount of personnel. It says to me that we really have to start taking a look at our approach to our deployments, whether we need to make some adjustments on that. We're doing some, I'm having the assistant chiefs do some research and to come up with some plans to maybe realign some of our districts in a more efficient way in order to make sure that we have the support for all of the coverage for the hours that our officers work. Because I can tell you in certain districts like the 4th district, which is the Wheaton Glenmont station, right now I have 35 vacancies in that particular district. It's the highest number. And we've had to make some adjustments along the way, but this is impacting the department across all divisions, because now there are some positions that I am unable to fill because it would really deplete the first responders. That's the patrol officers that are out there patrolling our streets and in the community and helping to keep your community safe. So I will tell you again, that's a matter of concern. One thing that's before the county council right now, currently on Monday, I'll be going before the Public Safety Committee, and I'll be having a conversation with them about our budget. The county executive has committed and worked out an agreement with the FOP in order to increase starting salaries. I think that is a major component to improving in the numbers and to assist us in recruitment. It also is going to assist with morale, because I think it's going to improve pay across the rank and file. That is going to be a bonus. But there's more discussions I think we're going to need to have about these salary adjustments. But that's going to be significant in today's environment about where we are. So with that being said, again, I think it's vitally important that everyone understands that, and we're not the only police department and I want to make sure this is clear, we're not the only police department that is struggling with recruitment and retention. I will tell you, I just came from a meeting with the Major Cities Chiefs Association, where all of the top 75 largest police departments in the country, which we are a part of. And the glowing theme for all of the chiefs that I was meeting with in regards to this very issue, they are experiencing the same thing. There's a lot of other professions that are impacted by hiring. It's just, some people are not just attracted to certain jobs. So we are trying to really sort of redevelop, our recruitment processes, our background, not necessarily the background, but our testing procedures for our new recruits, in order to make it more sort of a user-friendly type of process, and also try to hire officers as early as possible, police officer candidates, that as soon as they have passed the background and they've gotten to a point that we say that we're going to hire them, instead of waiting until the academy class starts, which may be 2 months down the road, we're going to really try to hire them almost immediately, and to pre-hire them and to do an early hire, I should say, and then assign them to another assignment until the academy starts. So there's a lot of other innovative things that we're trying to do, but I just want to kind of give you a little bit of lay of the land of what this looks like currently. So I'll pause there, because I'm sure there are questions, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
Thank you so very much. I really appreciate all that you're doing. I know that it has been a tough 2 years, both on the staffing level as well as just, having to manage a whole new set of issues. So it seems like there's some different issues from when we met last year around this time.
Yes.
And I know that the big issue at that time was a concern about pedestrian safety, because people were starting to speed. And we've seen, the carjacking, I think in the district at one point it was double, and I think now it's up 32%.
Right.
The other issue that has been a concern and folks have raised is just some of the incidences that have been happening in our schools. And I know that you're working with Dr. McKnight on a strategy, and just wanted to see if you could speak to that. And while he's speaking, if anyone has questions, please feel free to raise your hands.
Sure, Monique. Thank you for that. Yeah, absolutely. So Dr. McKnight and I have sat down with our staffs with some concerns that of safety that has occurred in our schools over the past, just during this past school years. Of course, everyone knows that we eliminated, quote, the school resource officer program previously as we knew it. And basically, I revised a new program, I should say, or created a new program called the Community Engagement Officer program with our school system under the direction of the county executive. And so we in conjunction with MCPS and a lot of other partners being involved in that, back in September, we created this this program that centered around our school clusters. So before, our police officers, our SROs, used to be assigned to the high school. The high school was really the primary responsibility. And so all of their focus for the most part was in the high school. If they got called to a middle school or an elementary school, they would handle it. But of course, the high school was their primary focus. Now, under the Community Engagement Officer Cluster Program, the Community Engagement Officer, formerly known as the SRO, is now assigned to the school cluster. So, for example, if it is, you take whatever high school that you can think of that may be in your area, that high school, let's say it's the Gaithersburg High School, has an officer. Then the two feeder middle schools, that officer is assigned to that entire cluster. So as to help the middle schools as well as the elementary schools that feed into the middle schools. And so, and there are defined responsibilities. The officers do not stay in a school all day long. They do not patrol the hallways of the school. And there are certain things that are events that occur in the school. Let's say there are criminal offenses that may occur. Let's say, for example, possessing drugs like marijuana. Well, now I've decided that we will no longer arrest students for possession of marijuana. In fact, because marijuana is decriminalized, they were only receiving citations anyway. But even then, we are not even getting involved in any investigation involving a student that simply has a mere small amount of drugs. We are allowing the school system to utilize that as a discipline issue, and we will come and seize the drugs, but we don't want to know who is the student. We don't want to know the details. We just take the drugs for destruction, and we'll write a report and take them to the crime lab to be destroyed. So there are certain crimes that, of course, that we are investigating. Sexual assaults, very serious assaults. Of course, any weapons being brought to school, such as guns or knives, those things we are still investigating, and we will be involved in those types of investigations. But beyond that, we have really kind of created this new program in order to be able to, again, not be involved as much with, again, as people think we are, being involved in really enforcing the law in schools, that we're really trying to work in conjunction with schools to provide more of a community policing connection throughout, to provide safety for our schools and to be visible during really high volume times, the beginning of school, lunchtime, and at the end of the day. Those are your three main areas that we are focusing on. And I think MCPS, we've come up with a plan that we think will be beneficial for everyone. So I hope that answers the question there.
Thank you.
Okay.
Robin has a follow-up question.
Thank you, Monique, and thank you, Chief Jones. Going back to your main presentation, you said that you had problems both certainly retaining officers, but also you were mainly talked about recruiting new officers.
Yes.
And it seems to be two problems. One is officer retention, one is recruitment of new officers. So maybe I can turn it into a question. Are you doing anything different about retaining officers in the force?
Yeah, so one of the things we are proposing is to try we have what we call currently a deferred retirement program. It's a 3-year program that basically an officer who is ready to retire can join this program and basically have their retirement invested while they continue to work for 3 more years in their same role and still earning their same salary. It's a great incentive because it gives us the ability to really be able to forecast and know when officers are leaving. And so what I am hoping to work through with the county executive and the union is to propose a 5-year program, because we have such high numbers who are preparing to retire, you know, and they're in that 20% range today. So we're working to try to see if we can retain some of those folks in the meantime. And on the reverse side of that, which is really, as you talked about, is the recruitment piece, and really trying to figure out how can we get more people into the door. We're also coming up with some additional strategies of really, for me, it's about developing even your homegrown talent and going to our high schools, going to our colleges, such as Montgomery College, because we require 2 years of college. We have a police cadet program, and our cadet program actually allows us to hire a young person who is going to college. They are earning a part-time salary, a half-year salary. They are working 10 months out of the year. They only work 20 hours a week, and the only requirement for them is to maintain a good GPA, you know, in order to pass a GPA, and to be enrolled in college full-time. So they're earning benefits, and they're learning, again, a little bit about the police, the environment and the culture, because they're working in some phases of the department. And that has been really successful. We started this program about 5 years ago. My hope is to grow this program. Right now, I think I have about 16 individuals in the program. My goal is to grow it, and in fact, to double it, because I would love to see more. And what we've seen as an advantage of this is that we're gaining a lot of diversity. We're getting more females, as an example, that are from Montgomery County than we've ever had before. So if we can continue to kind of grow on that, I really want to push that out.
Thank you. That's very interesting.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Bridget. And excuse the informality, we're going by first names today.
That's good. Chief, I just want to thank you, not just for being here tonight, but for everything that you've been doing, especially over the past 2 years. I know it's been difficult, and the concerns and the issues that you're speaking to tonight, we're seeing in Rockville as well. Retention, right. Getting good people in, and I think it's all about us having a reset in our mind about the value of good community policing and where we want to put that as an economic situation, or as an economic whatever level within our own budgeting, because to get good people and to have people who live here and know the community, you got to be able to live here, and we all know what that means. So I want to just start by saying that. The other thing I want to say is I am a firm believer that we need our community resource officers back in our schools. I changed the name, changed the uniform, change their job description so that they can be more of what it started out to be. I completely support that effort, and anything that I can do personally or in my position, I'm here to help. We don't need people going after trouble, but we need somebody safe that our students can go to when there's a concern. And I will tell you that I was talking with a parent from one of Rockville's middle schools a couple weeks ago, and he was telling me that they send their children to school with a bottle of water every day, and the children come home, the bottle of water has not even been opened. And they're like, come on, you guys, you got to drink water. And they're like, nope, we're not going in the bathrooms. These are good Rockville schools. This isn't somewhere where we, so I just, if we're having these kind of issues in our middle schools, we know they're in the, we know they're in the high schools as well, but we've got to find a way back to the partnership that used to be between schools and your department. And I just wanted to say thank you for everything you all are doing. And I personally stand, here with you to help in any way that I can.
Thank you, Mayor. I wholeheartedly agree with you. I think one of the most important pieces of the community engagement officer program, or SROs, where you call it what you want, right? To me, it's about relationships, and some of the best officers that work in our schools, you know, that when they have relationships, and I'm not just saying with the staff or the principal, I'm talking about with students, and much of what you're talking about, when you have those types of relationships, we've seen students actually go to the officers and give them information about what's happening in the bathroom, what's happening in, you know, the school period. But when you don't, if, you know, we're pushing our officers out into a parking lot, and just being, and in my opinion, just being out there and not engaging with anyone, I think we're missing an incredible opportunity. And so that's what I'm really trying to strive for all of us to get to that point, to be able to develop those relationships. I think there's a lot of misperceptions about policing in our schools and what does that look like. And I think a lot of people just think it looks like something else. And we kind of have to really kind of work through that.
Well, and if I could just add one more thing, I think we also have to be very clear to our partners of what we expect, and that certain things will not be tolerated.
That's right.
And not everyone is cut out to be a community police officer, right? Not everyone is cut out to work with children or with other things. And so it behooves us to work with you all to make sure that those people who take on that additional responsibility are well trained, well protected, not protected in the bad way, but protected in, we're going to get you the good stuff that you need to do the job, but you got to do the job right.
Oh, absolutely. That's one of the things I totally agree with you. We must supervise those officers that are working in the schools, and we must, first and foremost, select the right officer to be in those programs. And you're exactly right.
And train them. And I apologize to all of you for being late. I couldn't figure out how to get in tonight, so it's all on me. So thank you.
Thank you, Jim. You're on mute, Jim.
Trying to find the button. Thank you so much. Chief Jones, it's great to see you again. Thank you for everything that that your force is doing in conjunction with the Gaithersburg Police Department. It's a wonderful partnership, and we really appreciate all of the hard work that you are all doing. You know, I'm really heartened to hear, you know, about the task force on the carjackings. I think, you know, as we were all seeing the rise, you know, not just locally, but, you know, across the country of the increasing numbers, it was certainly disconcerting. And I was invited to a virtual community forum a couple weeks ago, and the question of rising crime came up. And, you know, as much as we all, you know, are able to point to that it's something that's happening across the country, it doesn't make anybody feel any better. And we're asked, you know, what are we doing to try and combat that? So it's great to be able to point to those kind of concrete steps, particularly, you know, around areas where some of the jurisdictional lines happen around Gaithersburg and the 6th District, and what is our force and what is Montgomery County, and being able to point to kind of that cooperation between the departments. I guess my question to you would be, you know, I was asked, you know, can we have a community forum, or, you know, to ask questions and to hear more of what that is being done. I just wanted to kind of get your take your temperature on what do you think the best way is for us to kind of communicate back to our constituents and let them know that we're aware of what's going on and doing our best to combat the problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost, I mean, I would offer you my staff, and, you know, to include myself, to be in any town hall or any forum that you would want to put together and allow us to be able to speak to these very issues and what are we doing about specific types of crime and that's occurring in our community, and make our community aware of some of the things. And I think it's always an opportunity that because you know, there are things that even our community can do that will help to be a deterrent to some of this activity. Because I can tell you, for example, you know, sometimes, you know, people do things that they, you know, they feel comfortable doing and they don't really think twice about it, and then they become a victim of crime because they've made themselves vulnerable by, you know, going to, for example, I say, like, you know, we see carjackings that occur sometimes at gas stations, right? They will pick on a female who pulls up to the gas pump, who's pumping gas and, you know, really not paying it, you know, just doing what they normally do of pumping gas. They might leave their purse on the front seat and leave their keys in the car. And then all of a sudden, these individual just overtakes them and basically jumps in the car and off they go, right? So, and not really being aware of their surroundings. So, you know, what are these things, you know, like one thing I talked to my wife about is like when you pump gas, put the keys in your pocket, you know, and lock the car door while you're pumping gas, right? Because that way it makes those, you know, these guys want to make whatever when they're doing this, they want to make it as easy as possible to get away. When they're seeing the difficulties of that, they're going to run away more than likely rather than sit there and struggle with folks. So these are just some examples of some tips that we can offer the community, as well as to educate them about what's happening. And I think we'd be more than willing to sit down and partner with Gaithersburg City with Chief Stroka and his staff to talk about those collectively. And I think that's always important for us to do that.
Thank you. I have a question. So as you're investigating and looking at the why things are happening, have you put your finger on why the increase in carjackings, why the increase in thefts? You know, we know that there's a lot of jobs in the workforce. Perhaps they're not paying enough. Maybe it's the mental health. I was just curious to see if there are any theories that you all have, because then we can maybe look at steps to make, you know, do things to prevent it.
Well, you know, there's a couple of things that I think that are clearly that are evident when carjacking started to become a thing and began to rise during the pandemic. And what we found was that the majority of the people that were involved in these incidents, I mean, as far as the suspects, were really like juveniles. I mean, these guys were really under the age of 18. I think we arrested someone as young as 13 that was involved in one of these, right? So it almost became what we started to see was it was almost like they were creating a challenge, right? And you see these things on social media, just like you see the violence. We started seeing violent events that occurred, and when we looked at what precipitated this, what even created this environment was in fact really sort of the disrespectful tone distributed by individuals via social media. So they would really kind of go at each other in a negative way. And then it would be like, well, show up at this location and I'll show you who's the boss, right? And then somebody brings a weapon to that particular encounter, and now you have a crime. Somebody's been stabbed, somebody's been shot. And again, understanding that we've got more weapons out on our streets than we've ever seen before. So there's been a lot of discussion. We've been talking to, you know, folks in the juvenile world, in health and human services, talking in recreation, talking about projects, talking about the positive youth development initiative. And a lot of this discussion has been centered around that. But again, like I said, you know, when we looked at some of these crimes, they weren't necessarily our kids from Montgomery County. Some of these crimes that were occurring were kids from other jurisdictions, and just found Montgomery County to be that environment in which they wanted to sort of be engaged in order to do their, you know, to do their deeds and then get away and go back to their communities. So I think there's a combination of different, really the base root cause of why individuals are doing this. We have not found that, you talk to an individual and they'll say, it's very rare that we hear a young person say, well, I did this because I don't have any money or because I don't have a job. That's not the sense of what we're getting. It's more about it's either a challenge for them or they just figure that this is the easy way to do it and I'm going to do it that way.
And I just wanted to know, I looked at an article in Chicago. They were saying that 57% of the carjackings were juveniles. And I know they're exploring and have seen some positive change with youth mentoring programs.
Right.
And finding ways so that youth are not unsupervised and idle.
Right. Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, the more after school programs, and I know the county is trying to work on some more, in fact, I think there's, talk about some more wellness centers throughout our high schools and more schools throughout the county. I think though that's beneficial because again, the idle minds, we do know that some students, their parents are working multiple jobs. They might be working 2 jobs and those kids are at home and unsupervised. And, sometimes these things, they get out in the communities and they're doing things and parents don't know their kids are out doing X, Y, and Z. And so no doubt in my mind, I think it would be very beneficial to see more of these types of programs to include mentoring and other things that could help that to get particularly those we are starting to see who are kind of like going off the rails and need some redirection.
Okay, thank you. And then there are a couple of other jurisdictions that are doing programs, and I want to get your takes because some may be thinking about what to do in their cities. So, for example, I believe DC has a program where they're doing the ring cameras, for example. Homer Park has the way that you could look at tracing cars to I think the catalytic converters are being stolen.
Yes,
Are
right.
any of these programs things that you would recommend our municipalities to take, things that you're seeing as best practices we should consider?
Yeah, I've actually, we're starting to talk more about the ring camera program. In fact, I've spoken to Council Member Craig Rice about this. There may be a proposal that he may be presenting to the budget to talk about having a ring camera program similar to what DC did. I guess that helps to provide some grants to residents to join in and be participant to provide that type of video, particularly in those neighborhoods where we have extensive problems, whether it's theft from autos or, any other type of crime that might be, or that we just create that sort of new neighborhood watch that the camera does a lot of the work as much as our human eyes do. And I think that can be a valuable part. The other part you were talking about, the catalytic converters. I know that my department, we have been exploring a new, not only catalytic converter, sort of a GPS type of program, but also to create sort of there's some new technology that allows people to tag sort of a GPS monitor on the bottom of your car. So if it ever gets stolen, that you have the ability to track it at any given time. And so we're exploring that for those, and we may, maybe offering that as a pilot to see if citizens might want to be a part of that and see how valuable that program could be in the long term. So I think technology is something that I will tell you, as much as we talk about our staffing levels, but it's something that we're utilizing more as an investigative tool or tools to help us to help solve crime and to put our resources in more significant areas to address these problem areas when we have them.
Thank you very much. I'll just see if does anyone else have questions. All right. Well, Chief Jones, you certainly have your hands full, but you also have a lot of support. So
Well,
I just
thank you all.
Thank you from all of us. We appreciate everything you're doing, and we know it's not easy.
I appreciate all of your support. Thank you all so much. It's great to be with you all, and I look forward to being back with you all. I'm seeing you in person soon, I hope.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.